Hello, and thank you for listening. Today we're going to talk about the happenings from Friday in U.S. District Court in Asheville. Was it a scheme or was it God's plan? Dr. Jerry Gross and his son Jason Gross take plea deals in U.S. District Court. My first memories of Jerry and Bobby Gross are from a visit they made to the Greenville Church in the early 90s. They came preaching a Word of Faith Kenneth Hagin type message. Even then, I could tell they were not fully on board with the Word of Faith Fellowship message. Their delivery conveyed their background, and that was all about to change. As we learned later, they cashed in this traveling preacher gig and moved to Spindale. Jerry took up a broom and began getting to know God as he swept up construction sites for Carlson Farmer. If I remember right, he talked of how it felt to earn minimum wage. Sweeping up sawdust became a spiritual adventure for him. Do others remember his journey? On occasion, he was allowed to speak in front of the congregation. He told stories of humbling himself and learning the ways of God. As the years passed, Jane helped him hear the next step was to reapply to medical school and become recertified as a podiatrist. He had closed his practice in the Midwest years ago. Now, let me just stop here and say that I would come up from the Greenville church during this time. I'll be honest with you, when Jerry Gross got up to speak, he was very adept at keeping the line of the story continuous, at keeping the attention, and very humorous. And I enjoyed listening to him speak. He had been a traveling minister, and he'd learned skills like that. As the months and years passed, Jerry shared his stories of taking a stand for righteousness amidst the medical community. He shared stories about a lady named Doris. I don't know if anybody, other former members remember these stories or not, but during medical school, he met a lady named Doris, and she was not understanding his approach to living life and living in God's ways, so to speak. And his stories about Doris were very humorous. His dry sense of humor was moderated on occasion by redirection or rebuke from the front row of the congregation. That would be Jane. He eventually passed the needed classes, completed residency, and found himself back in Spindale opening a podiatry practice. The exact details and all of the drama scenes I don't recall. My experience included taking my children to him to have them fitted for orthotics. Even I had a pair done and still wear them to this day. He took time to see children after church services. For years, I was impressed. Let's fast forward to November of 2004. By that time, my family and I had moved into the church in October of 2002. We were in the Word of Faith flow, so to speak. I had a calcium deposit on the top of my right foot, which gave me an occasional irritation, especially when I tied my shoes too tight. After the examination, I asked him to remove it. When I arrived for the surgery, I didn't have the current insurance card. My employer at the time was 2 Mile Properties, and they had just switched over insurance providers, and the new cards had not arrived yet, so Dr. Gross refused to do the surgery. I left the office that day miffed. Okay, I was stirred. I thought the best thing was to get the thing removed, and I wasn't aware of all that it took. The very next month, I experienced a heart attack. Looking back and knowing how the events unfolded, I am very glad he did not do the surgery on my foot. Not only have I heard of others who experienced less than positive results after he performed their foot surgery, but recovery from the heart attack required that I start exercising regularly. That would have been a complicated issue if my right foot was healing from a surgery. So despite my lack of joy when I was refused surgery, things worked out for the best all the way around. Let's take a look and let's review a few of the particulars from the information released on Friday. From the press release of May 11th issued by U.S. District Attorney R. Andrew Murray, we'll refer to him as Andrew Murray from here on out. Quote, a criminal bill of information was filed in U.S. District Court, Asheville, today, charging Dr. Jerry Gross, 72, and his son Jason Lee Gross, 51, both of Rutherfordton, with wire fraud. Now, as I read over this, as I heard the reports, I had a few questions, and I thought I would take my questions and just tell you what they were and get to you the answers, because you're probably having some of the same questions. First of all, I wanted to know what a criminal bill of information was. So I did a little Google search. A bill of information is a charging instrument similar to an indictment. When a person is indicted, a grand jury has determined that there is enough evidence to proceed with a trial. When the person is charged to a bill of information, that means that no grand jury has found that there is evidence to go forward. So what I understand, now this is my understanding of the process that I picked up, that target letters were sent out to individuals, letting them know that these are the possible charges, this is what we have, do you want to talk about it? And apparently it's cut and dry in this case. I've not seen a target letter, I've not seen the bill of information, I'm just reading from and telling you information I've heard. But apparently the evidence is cut and dry, and rather than give up a defense, they went ahead and accepted the bill of information, waived the indictment, the grand jury indictment process. Again, I'm no attorney. These are just things that I'm picking up. The press release goes on to outline the basic information regarding the wire fraud charge. So you might ask, what is wire fraud? I did a little search under the U.S. Code 8, Section 18, subsection 1343. It defines wire fraud as whoever having devised or intending to devise any scheme or artifice to defraud or obtaining money or property by means of false or fraudulent pretenses, representation, promises, or transmits or causes to be transmitted by means of wire, radio, television communication, in interstate or foreign commerce, any writing, signs, signals, pictures, or sounds for the purpose of executing such scheme or artifice shall be fined under the title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. If the violation affects a financial institution, such person may be fined not more than $1 million or imprisoned not more than 30 years or both. Now, the next part is from the press release itself. It says, quote, filed documents show that from September 2009 to March 2013, Dr. Jerry Gross and Jason Lee Gross carried out a scheme to defraud the state of North Carolina by placing employees of the Foot and Ankle Center on unemployment insurance benefits, while those employees continued to work at the business in excess of what was permitted by the program eligibility requirements. According to court records, the scheme enabled Foot and Ankle Center to survive the economic downturn during those years by creating a free labor force. Let me go over that again. According to court records, the scheme enabled Foot and Ankle Center to survive the economic downturn during those years by creating a free labor force. Going on, according to the filed court documents, during the relevant time period, Jason Lee Gross laid off at various times employees of the Foot and Ankle Center, including himself and Dr. Jerry Gross. Court records show that Jason Lee Gross made unemployment insurance benefits claims on behalf of the laid-off employees, including himself and his father. This was a scheme? The Associated Press released a story last September. The link is included in the text version of this post, which led to this investigation. In their story, they reported a former member saying Jane Whaley said this so-called scheme was quote-unquote God's plan. Now, faithful readers and followers, who is right? How dare the U.S. District Attorney mischaracterize, demonize, or join the so-called conspiracy against Word of Faith? It's just preposterous. Court documents further show that Dr. Jerry Gross also collected considerable unemployment benefits himself, despite deliberately turning a blind eye to whether or not he was complying with the eligibility requirements for the program, when in fact he was not complying. Court records show that the scheme caused the state of North Carolina to pay out at least $149,970 in unemployment benefits to laid-off Foot and Ankle Center employees that did not meet the eligibility requirements. Dr. Gross collected money under God's plan. Isn't that the way it should be? After all, when God speaks through Jane, everyone else in the rules of the state of North Carolina mean nothing. I can hear it now. The radio program will have at least one member saying how appalled they are at the U.S. Attorney calling Jane's revelation a scheme. But wait, there's more. The maximum penalty for the wire fraud charge is 20 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Signed plea agreements were also filed today. Plea hearings have not been set yet. This is from the release on Friday. Signed plea agreements mean that Jerry Gross and Jason Gross admitted their guilt. I've not seen the documents, but in theory, why would you plea and maintain you're innocent? This is the first of several other revelations this year, which will be the result of the AP articles from last year. The AP, on the one hand, pointed out the potential crimes. Now the different state and federal agencies must spend hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to investigate and either clear up the questions or proceed to obtain indictments. Friends, this is not just about $150,000. The AP article reported that there are 6 companies involved in God's plan or scheme or schemes, depending on your view. How many will be indicted? How many will be charged? We don't know right now. The investigations are ongoing. How many other versions of God's plan will be found to be schemes, scams, or downright illegal? It's hard to say at this point. In times past, I've called this group a stain on the state of North Carolina and the country. Remember, I used to be a part of this group, so I'm calling it a stain. At a minimum, they're giving Christianity a less than stellar portrayal. Can you agree? And if you don't agree about the use of the word stain as a label, can you at least agree that they are a strain and drain on the taxpayer dollars? These investigations are not free. The investigators have spent over a year calling, interviewing, recording, traveling, and sifting through documents to do their jobs. I can't say this is the only case they work on, and not sure how many agencies have been involved. The average salary for an employee of the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation is $63,000 a year. The average salary for the employees of the Department of Homeland Security in 2016 was $115,792.98. The links to this information are in the text portion of this post. I am assured this effort to verify and investigate Word of Faith has been going on for at least 15 months. Is it fair to say the entire scope of the known state and federal investigations and the funds fraudulently obtained could be approaching $1 million, if it hasn't already? Am I too low? This gig is not over yet, and I see no one approaching the microphone to sing the final song. How do we put a price tag on the bruised and injured souls who have made their way to and through the Word of Faith destruction program? Don't misunderstand. I'm not begrudging the necessary funds to learn the truth. My point is that we can lose the magnitude of the negative impact of Word of Faith Fellowship if you just coo and gurgle as a baby at their nice clothes and fine cars and big houses. And oh, the children, they dress so nice. Yes, but at what price? How much is this dangerous group costing the state of North Carolina and the United States in dollars? What is the emotional and physical quality of life for the members inside and those who have made their exit? How many family relationships has this group destroyed? My contention is the very fabric of our culture is being damaged the longer they are in business of schemes, scams, or their version of God's plans. The AP reported the court date for Jerry and Jason Gross is May 25th. If that holds true, I hope it is in the afternoon. That morning, the Wayne Guffey versus Carrick Hudson sign theft case is scheduled in Rutherford County. What will be Carrick's defense? Was he merely relocating the sign to make it easier to view or more visible? Was he also showing us God's plans for election monitoring? You can follow this blog on Twitter at Religious Cults. You can follow me on Facebook at John Huddle Author. And I have a YouTube channel, Religious Cults. You can follow me there. Thank you for listening.